Welcome to POC Q&A session number 7. And before we get started, let's introduce ourselves from left to right.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Michael and I'm POC for Germany.
My name is Risto Kantonen and I'm POC for Finland.
And my name is Sasha Luznar and I'm POC for Slovenia.
All right. So the first question comes from, I don't know how to pronounce this, Eire, Central USA. If we harness geothermal energy, would it not cool the planet? Is this energy like the heat loss from a motor, or like the pure energy in our sun? How can you be sure? Removing the blanket from the Earth will cause global environmental changes.
Okay, let me start with this question. I would like to go through this question step by step. So, firstly, if we harness geothermal energy, would it cool the planet? Technically or physically spoken, yes, it would cool the planet, but the question is, how much is the impact of the energy you are going to extract compared to the actual state of available amount of energy in, for example, Earth's core, and also with respect to all the energy which is being produced in Earth's core within planetary lifetime. So, and it actually comes out that even if you would heat every single house on Earth with geothermal energy, geothermal energy would still appear as a quasi-infinite source of energy. So the impact is not that much. Maybe to underscore this a little, if you dig to like 3,000 meters into the Earth's crust, you could expect a temperature like around 80 degrees Celsius, which is already enough to heat a house, and also for hot water supply. So this is only 3 kilometers in the Earth's crust. So if you go down to the core, to the liquid core, you can estimate temperatures between 3,000 and 10,000 degrees Celsius. And this energy is constantly renewed due to the friction of the moving metals. So the energy impact which you cause by extracting this energy is relatively small compared to the actual energy available. And maybe to get the rest of the question also, is this energy like heat loss or pure energy? So I mean, energy is energy. There's no such thing like pure energy, because energy appears in different forms. But it's relatively meaningless to declare one of these forms as a pure form. So maybe we could just skip this. And how can you be sure? Well, how can we be sure? What's usually done with these things is if you do experiments, you are going to do some statistical calculations, and then it comes out that you can, of course, not be sure 100%, but you can increase with various methods your confidence level to very, very high rates, saying that 99.97% or such. So you can never be completely sure, but if you apply statistical methods, probably you can determine your confidence level relatively closely to what's actually the fact. And last part, removing the blanket from Earth. So, I mean, you drill holes in order to gather geothermal energy, but it's not like you have to remove the complete blanket or outer crust from Earth. So I honestly do not understand this part of the question.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe I could add that even though I don't have the technical competence to evaluate the technical aspect of the question, I can say this, that whatever implementation would be put into realization, or whatever implementation we would realize before putting it into use. We will do studies on the negative effects and the positive effects of anything and everything that would potentially be done before it is done, to make sure that we do not cause harm to the environment or other human beings or anything like that. And as is with science, science does not is not able to give you absolute answers. We can only find the most probable. So I guess that covers that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question comes from Gazzille, Siena, IT. I don't know what state that is.
Italy.
Yeah, Italy.
Ah, okay. What do you think to do with ancient and culturally rich cities like Athens, Rome, Istanbul, which are only a few examples? How will these be treated? How will we treat the World Historic Heritage? Well, I do not remember where Jacques mentions this, and I will attempt to find the source as reference, but he has mentioned that some of the most culturally and historically important cities would be preserved as museum cities. So that answers that question. Next question comes from Max, Brooklyn, New York. With advancement of medical technologies, people are living longer. This is a major contribution to population growth. Will an educated and satisfied populace be able to, quote, control themselves and not overpopulate, or are other methods needed?
Yeah, it's a question that we get quite often, actually, and it's yes, for the most part, the answer is that education is definitely the key. And as far as the medical technologies to prolong life, I think that as long as we can make the life of a human, I think that as long as there is we get people the relevant education, then this problem would actually be non-existent. It has been shown over studies done even in the culture as it is now that education is basically a very essence of reducing the population growth. So, you know, as soon as you educate a person, and this was shown in studies in Africa and all over the world, as soon as the population is educated enough in the near basics, you know, like grade school and then high school stuff, the population increases drops. So that's already happening right now, even with the education as we have it. So I don't think that would be a problem in the future. And as far as controlling ourselves or getting to a place where we would overpopulate, I think that by that time and with the technology at our disposal, I think that it would be safe to assume that we're going to have pretty accurate numbers as to how much people can actually be sustained on Earth at that time, and we would, you know, think that it would be logical to not go over that number, just as it's, you know, logical right now to do something else, you know, to have a GDP that you have to keep positive or something like that. Oh, okay. There's a second part of this question by the same person that says, what are the Venus Project's view on competition in the area of sexual/love attraction among the people? This sort of issue could potentially escalate to threatening levels and is not often solved through attempted mutual understanding. This is, again, we can say that education is going to be the key here, and also especially maybe for the first, let's say for the people that have grown up in this system, it might still be a problem and they would need help, or they would need to get their values somewhere else. But for the most part, people that would be growing up in a saner society, I think that the probability of that happening would decrease very much. So, but even if something like that would occur, I think that that person would be helped in a way that's not imprisonment or anything of that sort.
Okay.
Anything to add? No?
I think I saw or have come across something relevant to studies and lectures that explain the factors that affect population growth. So perhaps we could link those as references so you can study the possible variables that are a factor in determining how the population grows.
Well, generally, as you can see with the newer Q&A sessions that we're doing, we're trying to incorporate a lot of links and reference points from other sources, so that you guys can then go and check out the description and see more information on it.
Yes, we try to provide as much evidence as we can at that time. Okay, and the next question comes from Stephen, 1959, United Kingdom. How does the Venus Project propose to deal with guns and other weapons in the initial stages of implementation of the project? We would likely deal with weapons and other military equipment in very much the same way that we deal today, because you have to understand that during that time we are still in the early phases of transition, which means that the whole world is not with us, and there might be countries like China or North Korea that may attempt invading. And there is, we will include a reference to Future by Design, or actually it's not from Future by Design, but it is a clip where Jacques talks about how we would address this particular problem.
Yeah, and in the process of the transition, try and get as many people as possible educated to be problem solvers more than soldiers and whatnot. So basically, education again.
Yeah, so military would be transformed as quickly as the environmental factors, social and otherwise, allow, to become more problem solvers rather than killing machines.
So maybe this is a good point to jump in and to promote a new group which is called Veterans for the Venus Project. Maybe some of you have already seen it. Yeah, I'm in contact with the one. He's a US soldier based in Germany who has founded this group, and I think we should also add a link maybe in the description of this video, so whoever is a soldier and is interested in this thing can look it up there.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good.
I can say firsthand, since I'm actually well, was a soldier or still am, that it's all about the environmental influences. Once you get into a setting where people are talking about solving problems another way, you're gonna try, if you want to participate, you're gonna have to do it differently. So it can be done. It's not something that the people in the military just can't be changed or whatnot. There's always that option, but have to be exposed to it.
Yes. It has to do with, it would help if you study human behavior and the factors that form our conditioning, our behavior patterns, our values and thinking. That way you will understand as to why military will be maintained up to a degree while, perhaps changing the training of the military personnel. But I think we can move to the next question.
Yeah.
Let me just hide it. Okay, here. So this comes, actually it's basically two submissions, but we have paired them, coming from Miro, Germany. First is, what do you think of putting current projects' status on the website, the Venus Project's main website, and the needed money for completing them as percent bars, so people can see how the donations do actually work on the project and be more motivated donating? And the second one is, how about making a priority list of projects on the website where people can see all the most important projects needed to be fulfilled? Also donation bars next to each project with the progress of the donations. And he's giving an example of 50,000 activists giving $10, which would equal to $500,000 per month.
All right, I'm gonna attempt to start this. The first part of the question, as far as the status bars of the projects, we've actually talked about this for quite a while in preparation to this Q&A. Well, for some projects that would actually be a very good idea, and we actually have some ideas as to how to implement this, and we'll be talking to the people that are managing the webpage. But for the most part, there are some projects that are very hard to quantify as far as how far along are they. And if I can just give an example as the difference between projects. So if you have something like the translation of the book, The Best That Money Can't Buy, that we're doing right now, you can quantify that in a way as to how far along we are. If you know that first the book needs to be translated, and then it needs to be proofread, and then it needs to be proofread again, and then going through it the final time. So basically you have these steps, and there are spreadsheets, Google spreadsheets, and you know exactly how much of a project is done, and you can then quantify it. How far along are you? But then there is a project like making a script and then making the movie, which is basically impossible to ascertain at a moment how far along are we. So what we're doing with projects like that is we're trying to have Jacques and Roxanne, when they're on, give an update when there is something of importance that happened, or there's been a next step or a next part of the project that's been achieved. But it's very hard to say that in a percentage style, because it's very it could give out a wrong impression, because something can go wrong, something can change, another script writer or whatnot, and you basically have a setback. So it's kind of hard to do that quantifiably. So But as far as some projects that are on the way, we definitely agree with that, and I think that we're going to try and implement more of that. All right, the second part of the question is similar, but asking about donations specifically. Again, as far as donations go, the Venus Project has those separate as far as the nonprofit organization and the store where you can buy DVDs and other materials, so that you know when you're donating something to, let's say, the movie effort, then you know that it's in a nonprofit organization, and basically that cannot be touched for something else than a movie. And if you're donating for something else, which is basically Jacques and Roxanne's work, or just getting the research center maintained and whatnot, so that's again something that's hard to quantify as far as how far along are we. We are definitely going to try and be as transparent as possible, but for some projects, it's just simply, well, I can't say impossible, but very impractical to do so, or could be misleading.
Yeah, and it's better not to provide an ETA or deadline that you cannot basically a reliable, if you cannot give a reliable deadline, it is much better to not give one, because then you create an environment where people have expectations and they're bound to be
yeah, exactly.
expressed.
And deadlines are not very, even when you have the money for the project, it's it's not sure that you're going to make the project, let alone when you're doing it with volunteer work. It's kind of hard to do that.
Right, and some of these projects require the people who are participating in those projects. It requires that they sign a non-disclosure agreement, so they would not be able to provide possibly the information that that people seek. Okay, I think we can move forward.
Yeah.
So the next group of questions come from various people. The first one coming from Mr. Abu Dhabi, United Arab
Emirates.
Yeah, and the other comes from XN Lafayette LA, and the third one comes from Chris San Luis Obispo, California. The reason they are a group is because they have similar elements, but I'll read them. Have you thought of a way to convince the politicians or make the public force the government to start implementing your vision? Or is it better to make one country in that way to become a role model for others? I'll just read all of them. The current U.S. government's policies are excessively corrupt, mainly due to profiteering. Would you please give the socially considerate Americans advice, instruction, prediction, or any other ideas you have in regard to the upcoming 2016 election? The corporate power bloc grows in influence and power every day. Do you think there is a way to sell them on the idea of an RBE? Should we young people get into business to further the cause of TPP? And to answer the first one, let's first examine an aspect of the political system. In order for a politician to be elected, he or she has to tell the general public what they want to hear. Otherwise, they will not vote for that person. So the system is structured so that they cannot give you the facts, because the facts would potentially and likely upset you as a voter. So that is unlikely. And you don't really need to force the government to start implementing this vision. For one, forcing would not work because they are not in their conditioning and values do not allow that kind of mindset just yet. And the other thing is why you don't have to force is because the decision makers, politicians, and generally the establishment is using the same methods in attempt to solve the problem that are causing the problem, namely the monetary system. They are printing more money. They are doing austerity measures, which only cause, which only cuts to the purchasing power of the general public, which means that they have less money to buy products. That causes that reduces demand, and because there's less demand, there's less need for workforce, and that causes or creates a vicious cycle, which has a self-reinforcing mechanism. And there's going to be a short reference regarding politics from Jacques in one video. And to answer the second question, I will answer this by asking you questions. Did you have any say in the matter of student loan interest rates? Did you have any say in the wars of Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, or did you have any say in legislation such as the NDAA, I think it's called? Or did you have any say in weapons program such as, I'll give you an example. United States Navy operates 14 Ohio-class submarines, each capable of carrying roughly 2,464 times the destructive power in bombs or missiles that were dropped in Japan during World War II. And to answer the last one about corporate power, the mindset of a businessman is to maximize profits while minimizing costs. So their mindset is only to make more money, and I don't see business-oriented people very receptive of this direction just yet, because the system is positively reinforcing the behavior patterns and values that they represent. So I don't see that as a likely way. Anything to add?
Did we already talk on the advice for the American elections in 2016?
Yes.
Well,
Yes, that was basically me asking the questions. Did any of you vote for the things that I asked?
Yeah, okay.
So,
I was missing the context. Sorry. Okay, go on.
Right.
yeah.
And so basically the conclusion for that is, what are you voting for? They're not really asking your opinion about anything. You're electing people who do the decisions on your part, and it just doesn't do anything. Don't bother voting.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can move onwards.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Stephen, Connecticut. Jacques, you have a vision of the future so inspiring that your email gets 50 mathematicians, physicists, biologists, and engineers all raising their hand every month to say, we're in, what now? So my question is, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, I have answered a similar question on last Q&A session last month, and so first of all, you're giving some information like 50 mathematicians, physicists every month who write an email. So my first question would be, where did you get this information from? Unless you're not working for the NSA, of course. And so I don't think this is the case actually. But to the real question, what are we waiting for? So it's not like we are doing nothing, you know. The point is that we have already a huge scientific and technical database with lots of people who have also several technical and scientific competences, and the key point is to set up a proper infrastructure to handle this huge amount of people, because there are simply not yet so much dedicated projects that would require all these technical and scientific personnel. So the amount of mathematicians, physicists, and such engineering don't matter right now because the infrastructure is not ready yet to handle these people.
Yeah, and also I'd like to just add to the last part that says, you know, they say we're in what now. That's kind of the problem that we're having all around, is that we have people that are willing to do something, but they're not really sure what they can do and what they can't do. And when, even for the people with skills, we don't, like Michael said, we just don't have the projects to have everybody working them. And there's another thing that's always a problem, is that first thing we have to do is we have to educate ourselves on the topic, on the resource-based economy, and that is a process, and not a lot of people are willing to go through that process and go through the materials and learn as they go along. So that's that, and very often that's also the problem.
I would like to add a small thing, because I find it important. So if you the point for the missing infrastructure is actually it's not so easy to set this up, because you need a lot of money. You need, in principle, in order to get working properly, you need also personnel which is hired for full time. So most of the people working here do this on a voluntary basis, and have other jobs. For example, myself, I'm an engineer and applied physicist, and I have to do a lot of work at the university. So what I try to say is that maybe sometimes people get false impressions of what's the current state of the Renus project. They expect to have the possibility to join a fully structured and fully organized research institute, but this is actually not yet the case. So there's a long way to go until we have the proper infrastructure and where we really need personnel on a large scale.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Where were we? Okay, there. Next question comes from Max, Brooklyn, New York, again. The human brain is a form of a computer. It can be surpassed in its ability to comprehend information and adapt to the ever-changing conditions. When computers or machines surpass the brain and are more efficient scientists, what will be people's incentive?
Okay, this question in principle has two major components, which is firstly a technical component and secondly a social component. So I would like to start with the technical component of this question and want to explain that according to the, let's say, according to the current state of technology, we have, for example, if we take as example the current data or internet surveillance by NSA and other institutions like this, which are supposed to, for example, prevent terrorist attacks. They gather really huge, extremely huge amounts of data, but they have one fundamental problem. They cannot process this data properly because the computer technology doesn't have such a great filtering capability like the human brain has. Human brain is the opposite. It does filter a lot, but it's not a fast processor. So what I want to say with this information is that it's most likely that the brain or that the human body in general at a certain point merges with technology which is newly developed in the future. So this question assumes that the technology is developing further, but human society is not. And I don't think this is a valid basis for what could happen in the future. So for the second component, which is the social component, I would like to say that we already talked about getting rid of boring labor by automation, and that people will get more and more time to do what they really like and shortening the workday. So this is one of the essences we want to pursue. Okay, and so if we don't have the necessity anymore to do like calculations because we have fast computers, or maybe computers which are capable of resembling the human brain, or even can do more than that. Even in that case, would you really think you couldn't imagine what you're going to do the whole day? I mean, if I, for example, if I wouldn't have to go to university, I'm not involved in research anymore. What would I do the whole day? I would maybe sleep until I wake up for myself because of the morning sun. Then I would go out or read a book or watch some movie, or just being creative. I don't know. You can write a poem. You can do whatever you want. Just because technology does overcome your capabilities. Even creativity doesn't mean you lose your own creativity and your own curiosity and your own wish to do something creative. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Also maybe since I'm not so technically, my background is not so technical, and as Michael's is, but just for the people out there that are like myself, sometimes scared of this misuse of technology and things like that, always bear in mind that when we're talking about technology here, especially regarding to the resource-based economy, you have to have in mind that this is technology that is applied to social concerns. So this is applied with the best of intentions, and also in a saner society. There wouldn't have to be all these firewalls and redundancies regarding somebody's going to hack into this, into that, and whatnot. You know, you can, in a society like that, you can actually focus on functionality, on durability, on things like that. So always keep that in mind. It's a lot different than it is right now.
And Jacques says pretty well in Future by Design, what will be people's incentive in the future, even if we have technology that surpasses us in certain aspects, and the incentive is need, provided by constant change in the environment. There is no final frontier, there's no utopia, because change is constant, so will our needs change, and we will have problems. We will always have problems that need solving. They will be different, but they will be there. So I don't see any way of incentive disappearing. And I understand this is one aspect or component I find likely that was a factor in causing this question, is that we're thinking in today's term, and it's not that people are afraid of technology or science. They're afraid of the misuse and abuse of that technology. And I'll give you an example that I have used before. You can take the basic technology of a helicopter, and you can implement that as a rescue device for, let's say you have a skiing accident and you have a GPS beacon on you, and then that rescue helicopter comes to save you. Or you can take the helicopter platform and mount machine guns, missile racks, or rocket pods to it. So it's up to humans where technology and science is explored.
Yep.
All right.
Next one.
Next one comes from Elect19 Mako, and I'm guessing this is from Hungary. He's asking, and thanks to LPI for translating this to us, he's asking, could a lecture be held in Hungary?
Yeah, this is also something that comes up pretty often, but I want to be pretty short on it because we have a couple more and we've been going for 45 minutes. I presume, first of all, that this person is asking about Jacques and Roxane giving a lecture. So that's my first assumption. So we'll go with that. As far as Jacques and Roxane are very likely, this should be asked them, but as I remember, similar questions were already asked, and they do not plan to go on a lecture tour like they did in 2010. Okay, for the simple reasons that it's just Jacques is just reluctant to travel such distances for just giving a lecture. Because it's very draining, even for the people that have traveled a lot and are probably younger than him. You know how it can be when you're traveling a lot. So that's one reason. And for if we just look at the lectures that can be provided by other people, then you're gonna have to contact somebody that is either a point of contact in your country or can speak Hungarian or whatnot. So if we have somebody like that, or if there is already somebody like that, then that person can hold the lecture. Alternately to that, there can be a lecture or a Q&A session or anything along those lines made on a platform like this. So basically, you're watching us on the Google Hangout. We can answer questions via live stream, and this has actually been done. Federico, a point of contact for Italy, has done that. They organized in a college, their local college, a group of people, a whole class of people that came and watched Paradise or Oblivion, and then had questions and answers. And the next day or the following week, when they had this class, they posed those questions to Jacques and Roxanne and a panel of others, and they would answer them live. So there are still possibilities that you can do that. Only your imagination and your determination is what is going to determine that. So that's long story short.
Yeah. Next question comes from, again, Max from Brooklyn, New York. How exactly does TVP differ from communism? I'm referring to communism as it was first intended to be, not like the USSR. I noticed some differences, such as TVP's considering of Earth's carrying capacity. However, I want a more thorough answer, though.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna try, and this is probably the most extensive question of all, so I'm gonna try and be thorough. And we've kind of answered this a lot of times, but this person obviously has some knowledge about communism. So the first thing I would like to do is explain that communism, as it was intended, so that as this person is asking, was never implemented. So the real communism, as is found in a communist manifesto, if you read it, was never realized. And what was called communism in Russia was actually not communism. It was state capitalism and fascism with a very elite group of people that were basically in charge, or whatever you want to call that. And it was not the idea of communism as is written in the manifesto. So that's kind of the first part of it. If you want to get a better example of communism, or quote unquote communism, that was implemented, was actually Yugoslavian socialism, which was a lot more egalitarian, and it was less elitist. So the difference between the people that have had a lot and the people that didn't have so much was a lot smaller, and since I was, for the first part of my life, was living in that system, I can definitely speak for it's more egalitarian as opposed to what was in the Soviet USSR or whatnot. But still, it had all the components that we are talking about that are not in a resource-based economy. So there were banks, there was the elite group, there was a government, there were politicians, there were all these things that we see. It was just more egalitarian, more people were more a part of economy, so they would be owners or co-owners of their of the building plants or whatnot. So there was more of that, but still, for the most part, it was it had the same problems. And then if we take a look at what is communism in a communist manifesto, and if we compare that to the Venus Project, it's a lot closer than what was in Russia. but there's still a couple of major differences. And first one is, in communism there is kind of the rule of labor. So basically, labor is kind of a value that is prevalent. So the workers they have, you know, their own stakes in all these companies that they're working in and things like that. So basically, the worker is the one who is leading all this this idea or this system. Whereas in a resource-based economy, where we want to apply technology, which was something that it was not predicted back then, and to make the workload a lot lower and make it obsolete, actually. So that's one big difference. And then also ownership itself would disappear with that. So there would be no ownership and no need for money. And one other thing that we were talking about in preparation for this is the fact that communism was, when it was written, it wasn't really meant to be global from the get-go. So basically, it was a system that would be implemented in one of the states, albeit it was a big state or country or nation back then, but still, a resource-based economy is something that is by definition global, and needs the cooperation of the whole world. So I hope that answers your question. You guys have anything to add?
Yeah, I would like a little bit to explain why resource-based economy needs to be global and why it is global by definition. And you can understand it by this explanation. As long as you control or have access to most of the Earth's resources and means of production, there's going to be, or even if you have access to most of Earth's resources and means of production, there's going to be a group of people or nations that do not have access to the resources they need. And eventually that will cause them to attempt invasion to get access to the resources. So if it's not global, you will have conflict and war eventually. And then even if you have similarities in two or more systems, doesn't mean that they are equal. This is called the fallacy of correlation does not imply causation. Basically, for example, you have you can take the example of a bonobo, which has over 98% the same DNA as human, yet they are not human. So even though the correlation is very high. Okay, and since we're running low on time, I would like to move to the last question.
Yeah.
Which comes from Ty, Cleveland, Ohio. The Venus Project has many excellent theoretical points, but when you said that one of our objectives is to get nations to cooperate without the thought of money, how would it ever be possible to leave a monetary factor out? An example, USA and China. Well, think about real major natural catastrophes like Hurricane Katrina, I think it was, or an earthquake or a tsunami. Even if you have money but you do not have access to clean water, medical care, it doesn't matter how much money you have, because money itself is not a resource. Actually, most money is not even in physical form. It is most money is just numbers moving from one banking computer system to another over a network, or it may be numbers on a bank statement or another form of financial statement. So what you need is physical resources food, water, metals, plastics, concrete, and of course human resources, which is the know-how, how to apply and use those resources for the good of everyone and the environment. Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah, it's always hard to answer these kind of questions because there's a lot of people have a very different understanding as to what is the monetary factor, or it's very hard to correlate.
Yeah, but what's important to especially for the last question, what's important to know is that in the case of a real emergency, it almost immediately comes down to the physical resource and not money. Yeah, that's important to know.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I guess we've gone through them and actually
Yes, this is all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just under an hour.
Yep.
Great effort.
Right. Okay. So since that's that, I think well, we'll open the moderator on Sunday, and it will again close on the same week of the next Q&A, on Monday of the same week of next Q&A again, and
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
provide that.
Next Q&A is going to be on Sunday, September 1st. So right to start the month off.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Until next time.
Yeah, see you everyone next
Bye,
time.
guys.